I'm here to be a hardscaper and be the best at what we do. And if I get involved in this other stuff, that makes me happy.
Every now and then we get a guy that comes on the show who is in the excavation industry, but has a specific niche, and it's a little bit different than just normal dirt work. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with a gentleman named George Dille. He's out in Kansas. I just forgot the name of the town. Osawatomie, I believe it is. It's about 45 minutes south of Overland Park, the KC metro area. Hard focus on landscaping and specifically hardscaping. So I'm excited to speak with somebody who's in the industry, but in a little bit different niche than we normally get to speak with. And before I introduce George to all of you today, I want to remind you that Skid Steer Nation, we actually are a store. So you can go to skidsteernation.com and find high quality American-made skid steer attachments, whether you're looking for buckets, grapples, augers, trenchers, grading attachments, power rakes, telescopic booms, whatever it is. We've got quite a variety on it. We've interviewed all the manufacturers. We've vetted them. We've made sure the quality is up to our standards. And I come from a manufacturing background, so I'm not just saying that. And we also make sure the customer service is there. So these attachments will help you in your business get a better return on investment than lower quality attachments in the industry. skidsteernation.com. George, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to get you on here. I'm really interested in getting perspective from somebody who does more of the landscape, hardscape work. I mean, there's a lot of manual labor goes into that. And I think a lot of people in the excavation industry kind of steer clear of that because it has to take a lot of time out of the machine.
Yeah, we kind of we do the stuff that nobody wants to do for the most part. I mean, a lot of the lawn and landscape guys don't want equipment, and a lot of the excavation guys don't want to get out. And, there's a lot of wheelbarrow pushing, but I guess that's what keeps us in shape.
Yeah. And I'm assuming this is your passion because you started off your career as a landscape architect, correct?
Yeah, landscape designer. And there's, it's kind of two different lines between the architect and the designer. So I went to school to become a designer, and that's more of the hands-on kind of blue collar side of it. Where an architect is, kind of the little brother of the normal architects that you think of. They still have exams that they need to pass for certifications, where for the most part, anybody that wants to call themselves a designer can be a designer. But I have, plant knowledge and, some of the more specifics that they kind of tap into a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's hands-on. That's where we learn and get most of our experience. It's doing the work itself. And oftentimes, between the two, architect and designer, the designer is more of the rough hands, I call them, instead of the soft hands when it comes down to the nitty-gritty.
Got it. Well, I appreciate you explaining the difference for me. Did you start this as a side hustle, or did you jump straight in and go right into business? Or what was the transition from being a designer to a business owner?
So I had always been messing around kind of on my own. When I was in high school, I was going to make fishing lures to make my $1 million and retire, and quickly realize, for the $3 an hour I was actually making, I didn't want to be dealing with that. So wanted to farm, but we didn't have the land to truly, sustain myself and my father and family. So went into next best thing, which is basically city farming. And so started doing that. I had a business through college, an awful student, very big in the leadership side of it, but it's terrible going to class and stuff, managed to pass, do all that, gotten kind of sideways with a couple issues. And I just didn't want to be a business owner after that experience in college. So went to work for a handful of companies, learned a ton. And then, in January 2020, I got a text message on a Sunday morning that I was no longer employed where I worked just due to shifting business focus. So I'd kind of amassed, the skid steer that I own, a 550 pickup, dump trailer, and some other equipment, a Tandem International, kind of amassed that through that organization. And then they basically said, you don't work for us, and if you want to buy this stuff, here you go. And at that point, the world was still normal. So yeah, why not? Let's take a bite off. This stuff is still worth a ton of money. So worst case scenario, we get to June and we'll just sell it all, and I'll go work for whoever I want. And it never looked back, basically, and I got 2 little boys, my wife. And so it's kind of one of those things that it's like, I don't want to fail in front of my kids. I think that's a lot of drive for a lot of men. And, one of those companies I had worked for, I had a really, really good mentor, and he basically texted me out of the blue right after we started and said, "Hey, I'm looking for work. Can I come work for you?" And he didn't even know I had a business yet. And basically was like, "Man, come on in." And in the back of my head, it's like, I don't even know how I'm going to pay you. I don't even know how I'm going to pay myself. But if I've got you, I know that as long as I can stay ahead with the sales and keep them equipment staged up, we're going to be A-okay. And they're, between the two of us, we shouldn't be able to fail as long as we can keep the workflow coming. So, did a lot of little bitty jobs kind of in 2020. Everyone got their COVID money. So a lot of $2,400 projects, and, ran into some of the bigger stuff. And now we kind of focus on those very large, month and a half long projects, you know, 50, 60,000 to 120,000, but they're all in residential neighborhoods for the most part. It's very rarely that we get into a, rural situation where we've got a $40,000 project going.
Right. And I mean, 50 to 120,000, you're talking about affluent neighborhoods.
Yeah. We're, we'll work for anyone. That's my thing. It's like during COVID, especially, we found that some of the neighborhoods where I'd worked in the past as a salesman for another company, it was, I called them no man's land because we never had any work in those neighborhoods at all, other than like some mowing and maintenance. Well, during COVID, everyone was getting retention bonuses and was at home. Garmin, their national headquarters or international headquarters, is right in this neighborhood. So there was a lot of engineers and stuff that had started with Garmin 15 years ago and still lived in the same house. Well, now all of a sudden they were home for the first time in their career and they wanted some of these bigger projects. And we just kind of right place, right time happened to be there to scoop those up and, put them under our, put a feather in our cap with those projects and kind of start building up and working our way up the ladder from there.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, and this is the question I want to ask you, but like I found from my personal experiences is once you can crack those affluent neighborhoods, like if you did a job for a guy down the road, you're already trusted to be a good enough of a contractor to do the neighbor's house. And then you also have the keeping up with the Joneses. So it kind of snowballs on its own once you can crack into those affluent areas. Did you notice that?
Yeah, the one that we really get is just the friends of friends, and it's the saying that it's like poor, or rich people don't have poor neighbor or poor friends, basically. And so we're kind of riding this wave right now where, one guy took a really big risk on somebody he'd never heard of, but his, someone I used to work with referred them to us, pulled off the project. They weren't even in the country for the duration of the project. We showed up and did an $85,000 project. They came home and was like, "Wow, this is incredible. Here's a check." And that, they love us.
That's like a contractor's dream, man. Like you don't have to have them look at the mess every day and like wonder what the vision is.
Yeah, it was excellent. And that was kind of, I'd always said that that's what I want to do. And I just got lucky to do it. And, you're sending a lot of pictures back and forth and text, doing some Zoom calls and stuff over it. But a lot of times whenever we would run into an issue, you're digging and all of a sudden there's an old concrete footer from a shed that was in the backyard. It's like, I don't have to go to the homeowner and explain to them what's going on. And they don't come home in the middle of this process. It's handled and done. And we get to, everybody moves on. They don't care it's there. They just want it worked out and worked off. And so now we've got a handful of referrals and we do have some of the keeping up with the Joneses, but it's always one of those things, your image is always there, whether you think it is or not. So that's, keeping the job site super clean, keeping our trucks clean, keeping our equipment in decent shape. Nobody, you could argue you can do a lot of this work in these neighborhoods with the jalopy and, machines leaking fluid all over, and you can. And there's a lot of people that do, but that's not the crowd that I want to deal with. I don't want customers that are looking for deals. I want customers that want a solid project and they don't want to have to worry about it. And so that's, kind of the image that we try and convey as we're going through these things.
Yeah. And I don't know, how much thought did you put into like your brand and your look on the, outside of the truck being clean and the job site being clean? Like I visited your website, I visited your social media sites, and like you have a very cohesive feel to everything you do as far as like your branding for your businesses.
Yeah. So I've got a really good website guy who just kind of met through my time working for various places. And, he does that, and he understands, even when I was a wheelbarrow, professional wheelbarrow guy, like I was shirt tucked in, my sleeves were always on my shirts when the hat got too dirty. And I was just the guy making $10 an hour on these crews. But, to me, it was like, these people have, in my mind at that point, it's like these people have more money and spending more money on this project than I'll have my entire lifetime. So I need to represent who I'm working for in such a way that we continue that professionalism. And then whenever I kind of worked up into management, I managed 120 people at one point. And when I came down and said, sleeves on shirts, guys, that's the end of it. Quit cutting shirts off. I can't send these guys into neighborhoods with $6 million homes and everyone's got their sleeves cut off down to the bottom waistband. Some people do, but that's not the image I wanted that company to have. And, that was whenever I made my logo in college. It was really a way for me to stamp my own work and turn it into the professor, so I didn't have to just write my name on it. It was kind of a neat way. I'm designing anyway, so why don't I have something cool to go on here? And so that's why we've got the GD with the circle on it, because I can rip that off and I can put that on a truck. I can put that, I went to Sticker Mule and I've got 100 of those little 3-inch stickers, and every wheelbarrow, every sod cutter, everything that we have has that on there, more so we can say this is our stuff. But it's a clean look. It's what the customers we're after want to see, and I think it's very important to have that brand recognition, whether it's just you in a truck or whether you're running, 18 crews. People are looking for that. That's what makes them comfortable.
100% agree. I mean, as you're telling me all of that, the one thing that kept coming up to my head was when I was, act today like the man you want to be tomorrow.
Right.
Like, that's all I could keep thinking about as you're telling that story. Like, we're going to have sleeves on. We're going to represent ourselves this way. I want this company to be seen in this specific light. Like, act today the way you want to be seen tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, like I've got a polo shirt on underneath this. It's a $7 golf shirt that I have embroidered. So it really costs about the same as a t-shirt, but the image that it casts is so much greater than a t-shirt. I've got t-shirts that I wear when I'm changing oil and working on stuff, but these polos also get destroyed just by the nature of the work. You got to boom down one piece of equipment, you've got mud and grease from your belly button to your knees, no matter what you do. That's just the nature of it. But you are at least showing up, and it also helps if guys are running crews, even if your crew leader wears the polo, when somebody looks out in that yard, it gives that homeowner, they can answer the question in their head without walking up to 4 guys, who's in charge, that guy's in charge. And it's it's kind of personal preference. We're a pretty small company, but it's part of the image that we have to maintain. I'm a scrubby kid that lives in the middle of nowhere, and I'm driving up to one of the most affluent neighborhoods for 500 miles around here, so I need to carry ourselves that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to do business in their world, so you have to look like you fit into that world.
Yeah. And on that same note, I still wear, cowboy cut Wrangler jeans, and I wear those because they last. But it's also, a lot of folks I get, if you show up and you look too good for the work, to where they, and that's where I've come up with the soft hands and rough hands. If you show up in our industry and you're a soft hand, it may not go over the way you want it to, versus the guy that shows up, slaps the design on the table and says, I made this, I built it, we can do this project for you. They trust that not only do you know what you're talking about whenever you're or doing the initial meeting, you've got all of the experience to back all of that up. I look like I can do it, and I also am cleaned up enough to look like I care about meeting with that customer and respect them enough to look presentable.
Yep. And that's a great example, because I just had a roof replaced on a property that I own because of hail damage. And the kid that they sent out, like, you're just expecting the typical roofing salesman, smooth talking, clipboard. He gets out and, like, he's wearing Van shoes. He's younger. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, man. He had 2 different ladders out. He was looking at this. He was explaining that. And, like, it took 5 minutes for me to go, this kid gets it.
Right.
Like, he's not afraid to be on the roof. He's wanting to show you all the details of everything. And we haven't even discussed materials, timeframes. Like, he's wanting to make sure that you understand what the expectations of the replacement are, what's wrong with it, what other areas we can look at. And it just goes to that thing where you're saying, like, he can't be that person if he's never been on those job sites, whether he's actually done the work with them or just been with that leader. But he wasn't just a salesman.
Yeah. And that's important to me. And I've told my guys, I was like, if we do so well that I'm not out here driving the trucks for it, I'm the only one that has a CDL in the company. So anytime the tandem's going anywhere, anytime we're moving the skid or the excavator, I'm the guy that's doing it. And it's because I love it. That's what I like doing. And it's like anytime that we get to be so big to where I'm just driving a little sports car around the check on you guys, I'm going to sell this thing and go do something else. Like, I've made it. I don't need to be doing this anymore. I can go do something else. So
yeah. So you do some dirt work and land clearing, gravel work. I saw like you'll fill that in based on your schedule and availability when you needed it. You kind of started out doing some of those jobs. Yeah. When you started focusing solely on like the landscape, hardscape projects, how much work did you have to do in the back end of your business to prepare for material costing and estimating and labor? I guess that's a drastic difference than a one-day land clearing job.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of did it the other way, to where I was always, whenever I basically was handed the keys to a landscape company to be the salesman. My first year, I set the all-time sales record for a 35-year company. I had no idea what I was doing. They gave me the formulas and the numbers and stuff, and I just went with it. And so I understood roughly what needed to go, for the most part, landscaping. Now that I'm involved in it for the last 4 years, every single day, we've tweaked a lot. But I kind of backed into doing the land clearing and the gravel driveways and stuff like that. I was like, well, whenever I'm buying gravel for my walls, this is how far generally it goes. This is the cost of my gravel. Well, heck, if I can take my trailer with the skid steer and a load of gravel at the same time, it should be X to do that. And I use those, I call them side jobs, because a lot of times I'll get my crew set up. They've got 15 pallets worth of pavers they're ready to do. They've got all their base in. They're just on cruise control for the next 2 weeks. I got to find something to do before I just lose my mind. They're very good. I don't need to babysit them. We've got good expectations. They know what needs to be done. So I'm better off coming through, walking through the job site, shake hands, kiss babies, have a good day, guys, and I'm off to go do something else. So we do, because I live in a rural area. We don't necessarily work or focus on the rural areas. That gives me an ability to come in, do some gravel. We've got a little brush hog that goes on my excavator. And so there's a handful of folks that their septics are overgrown and whatnot. We can go in there and take out a lot of those little willows and clean that up, get the stumps out with the bucket. And I can go do those in a day or 6 hours. And I haven't really, the only thing that prevented me from doing was getting distracted and watching Netflix all day. We're still bringing in plenty of revenue. And a lot of times you get stretched out on these bigger projects. And instead of going to the customer every week begging for a progress payment, I can go string along enough of these smaller projects that we're covering the bases and covering payroll and everything else with this other work. And then we get to the end and all of a sudden we get a massive lump sum payment for the majority of that project. And, life's good for a while again. And it's not kind of the grind that it can be at times. But I also, because we have that equipment and the industry I'm in, a lot of landscape companies need their debris pits hauled off, dirt that they inherit through projects and trees that are cut back, lawn clippings, brush and stuff. And so I'll go in, get set up because I can operate. They've already got the equipment there. I just show up and say, I'll tell you when we're done. Here's what the price is per load. We've got several dumps located nearby. So I can go do that, get 5 or 6 of those, and then, haul offs done in a day. I'm still close enough to check on the guys should they need something. They need another yard of gravel or we need a pallet of this, that. And, it works really well. I'm still filling time and still producing as the owner, but my guys are really the ones cranking stuff out on the back end.
I love that philosophy. I mean, because if you grow your business to the site where you're not needed to do the large projects, you've got the right crew in place and all that. Yeah, you can sit in the truck, twiddle your thumbs all day and micromanage them, which that just makes every job last longer. I don't care what industry you're in. Or you can go out and be, productive and increase some revenue.
Yeah, and there, and there's things that I'm not the critically detail oriented type guy. So a lot of times you're cutting pavers and you're like, oh, good enough, and slam it in the ground, where the crew that I have is much more nitpicky about that. I can stand back as a manager and I'm nitpicky, but whenever I'm doing it, I find myself not wanting to be that way. And so it's like, I'm just going to get out of your guys' way because I'm going to do something you're going to want to redo anyway. So just do your thing. I trust you, but I'm going to go work somewhere else. And I think that's a big thing because a lot of guys, once you step into management, they think you are just driving the nice truck around and doing this, that, and the other. And it's like, man, most of the time I'm driving a 2001 550 with the 7.3 in it. Like, that's my get it done truck. I'm not, I'm here working. I'm not standing beside you working, but I'm out with you. And that helps kind of maintain that, you know, respect across the board. They understand, oh, he's gone and built this whole other wall without us. And we're just here to in between projects to help tear everything down, clean it up, and get off the project to the next one. And it helps, it just helps people understand that I've done it and I am continuing to do it. So that's why when I come to you and land these expectations, it's not just me being a clipboard manager and
Yeah,
telling you that needs to be done.
absolutely. Great philosophy. I love how you're handling that as an owner of a company. So let's just touch real quick back on like your marketing and that. So how much input did you have on like your website or the way that your posts on social media are and all of that? Or does your web guy create all of that, or do you do any of it yourself?
So he's got a phenomenal team. And that's one of those things that I've always I had the trust with them just working with them previously. And so it's one of those things that I came to them and was like, do your thing. I'm very much a hands off. I still have to go and review stuff, check out our blogs, make sure that they're not, crossing the wires and saying something completely backwards to make me, I'm not writing those. That's what they do. So we sit for about a month, once a month, we sit and have an hour meeting. They ask me a list of questions. I ramble off kind of like we're doing here. And then they kind of boil that down into what they need, double check any, questions that they may have. I review it, click submit, and then they do it. They do all the posts. They do that for me, and we're getting to where I've used a lot of the lead generation services like Angie and Thumbtack. We did a little bit of Yelp for a while, but it was too much of a rat race. And I got to where I was keeping my budget super low, so that way we'd run out of budget, but still be listed on those pages. Because to me, the exposure is worth the $250 a month you may be spending, because all of that is still pointing back to my main website. So a lot of times, you're searching keywords, retaining wall, Overland Park. Hopefully, we're one of the top 3 people that pop up in Google whenever you type that in. And so that's kind of where we're trying to build to. And so it's kind of a necessary evil in a way, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have that exposure. You don't have, 30 customers that already know who you are that are really cheering you on. If you're just starting, you know, that stuff becomes a necessary evil. But again, you have to treat those just as professionally as someone you've got a relationship with for the last 10 years. You'll probably never see 90% of them again. They're not even going to open your bid, but you at least need to carry yourself in that way, because you're still driving through those neighborhoods. People are still seeing your truck parked. But that marketing, it's a big deal. And, winners keep score. So I'm always tracking, Google Analytics is one thing that they use a lot, and I get in and I watch that. So we do some Facebook ads where we'll post a handful of photos, and they're kind of going through on Marketplace, and they're going through as you scroll on the side. You see those little ads all the time. And I come in on the back end on analytics, and I'm like, well, how many people are coming through to the website? Okay, great. We've got, 75 click throughs this week to the website. Well, how long are they staying here? 35 seconds. Those are junk. They're just here looking,
Yeah.
and they're gone. But the other flip side is I'm not a deli or a bodega or somebody that needs 600 sandwiches sold every day to stay in business. I need 15 great clients a year. So as long as you're still kind of present in that stake, we may have somebody call us in 3 years that saw an ad or saw us do a project across the street. So it's kind of that always, you never know who's watching. You never know who's watching on that marketing side, especially. And you can break that stuff down even too. So, keeping score, that's where finding somebody like the website folks that I have is really important, because they can boil it down and say, here's the things that you need to check, because we've got, every week, say you've got 75 new people clicking on your website. Well, you've got 15 that are returning after they were already there. So if they're returning, that means they saw something they like. They're interested in something, whether it's your mom or your grandma. You only have so many of those. but there's going to be a couple handful of customers in there that are ready to sign up and spend the money with you.
Yep. And I'm going to steal that line, by the way. Winners keep score. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I use it with my 5-year-old in soccer right now. It's like, look, buddy, I know there's no refs, but you're losing by 3 goals right now. I don't care if you lose, but we're playing a competitive sport. It's the same thing in business. If you're just waking up and going through the motions every day, you're going to be working until you die. My goal is, on a rain day like today, my family came up in town, met me for lunch. We walked around Shields, had a couple hours where they got to spend time with dad during the daylight, which is great. But that the whole reason we're working so hard right now, so eventually you can back off and live a little bit. And that's the whole reason you got to be white hot now and keep that score now. It's critical.
Yeah. And you can't make any good decisions without data.
Right.
And in today's world, there's so much, it's almost like we get overloaded with data and then we don't know what to look at and then we kind of shut down. So it's really imperative to like set your goals of like for you, like, all right, Facebook ads. I want to know how many of those actually end up at the website.
Yeah.
Right. So the goal of Facebook ad isn't to get a sale. It's to get traffic to the website. And then we can look at returning. So like, it's setting the expectations of everything you do.
Yeah. And, it's more important now that we kind of have those metrics set up that we can control. Cause like with Home Advisor and Thumbtack that, 80 people looked at you this week. Great. Well, you got 15 leads. Cool. You went to those meetings. You're competing with 30 other guys on all of those, depending on what your closing rate is. That's fine. But a lot of those people, you're going to send them the bid. Well, you're double the price as all the other guys, but they started last week. They're letting anybody in there. So that's why that you get back to that image and keeping score and everything. It's like, I've started charging for some of those leads on those lead services. It's $100 fee for me to show up to even look at the project. Well, that weeds out all the people that want a deal, but it also allows me to keep that posting that sends back to my other website that really pushes that stuff up. And then it all boils down to if they want you bad enough, they're going to plead with you to come out there for free. And if that's what you got to do, great, because a lot of people are out there doing free leads. But if somebody wants you, you're going to know they want you to come do it, and they're willing to pay what you're worth.
Yep. Completely. It's like when you do your estimates, because I'm assuming you have got a lot of design work that goes into completing those estimates. Do you have a design fee that you charge, whether they hire you to do the work or not?
So I do it. I've kind of come up with this hybrid system that I use where, I use Joist for a lot of my stuff. So if other people haven't heard of that, there's a free way to do it. I pay for whatever the top tier is. So that way I can break things out
$12 a month, I think.
Yeah, it's like nothing. So add in all that. We can take credit card payments through there. We also use QuickBooks for that and ACH stuff. But as I'm walking through and the customer's telling me stuff, I'm populating my bid already. And I'm not taking notes because I'm building the bid with the notes for the customer while I'm talking to them on my phone. So then a lot of times, hey, it's going to take me a little bit. I need to check with the vendor, make sure the prices are stable on some of this stuff. But for a lot of times, I can measure everything out. I've got that Mosier cube that I use to measure stuff, which I can have my square footages immediately, back into some of this stuff. Give me a day or two. And I get people a number and I say, okay, I'm going to send you a number. And if you like the number, I'll give you the design. We already talked through a majority of what you want to see here. Here's some examples. But if you don't like the number, I'm not going to waste my time on the design. And some people say, well, we just want the design anyway. It's like, okay, it's $350, $150 an hour, basically. It's yours to do whatever you want with. If you do it the other way, where I send you the bid first and you say, yes, I do the design just for the sake of me not having to explain it 40 times to my crew and the homeowner. It's included as part of the process because you're going to have to do it anyway. But, there's a lot of projects I can drive around that I've designed that I've got nothing to do with the install on. So I don't give those out anymore. They're important to me. But I also want people to understand that it takes my time, but I'm willing to do it because that's the only way I can convey the sale to you. If you want it and you want to hire Joe Smo down the street, fine, you can have it, but it's included in the price if you go with me. So I try and get them those numbers first to see if it's even worth the hassle, because the last thing I want to do is spend all my time doing designs, and then sending somebody an invoice for $350. And I've got 10 of those that I'm chasing people down, trying to get them to pay before I can eat. I've already spent the time doing it. So usually if I can just get them to sign up, pay the deposit, and then here's your design, you got 6 months before I'm going to show up anyway. So now I've got some time on a rain day or a weekend or something. I can put that out, send it to you, and then it's yours to do, think about it. And we've got plenty of time to edit before we even get started.
I love the strategy. I'm just curious, was that difficult at the beginning when you didn't really have a portfolio to show people of finished work? Like, I'd have a hard time giving you money without seeing.
So the bar is very low in the lawn and landscape industry. So if you're showing up and doing all these other things with image, if you care enough to tuck a shirt in and drive a clean truck, that generally tells people that you're capable of these things. I've always, even when I was working for someone else, I was taking photos that were my photos. I don't advertise with those through our current branding, but I still had those photos that when we started with, it's like, I built this project 15 years ago and I'm 300 miles away from here. I want you to see it so that way, if that's something you like, I've been a part of this project, so we can handle that. And so we had a handful of customers that came with us in the very beginning, from my former employer, because they quit doing the install side of it. So they wanted somebody to do it, and they loved me enough to at least get us started. And it's like, great, look at all these customers. It's March now. Those run out in May. So you still had to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. But I always had some kind of portfolio built up. It's one of those things that a lot of people wake up one day and they decide, I'm going to go build a patio today. There's tons of those people. It can't be that hard. I've watched some TikToks and it's like, yeah, that's cool. What are you going to do whenever you walk across some ground and you just, compact it with a jumping jack and it's still jello when you go across it? What are you going to do then? And so I can speak and I can talk well with folks. And a lot of times just conveying my knowledge in that way. The other thing I did is I used to do weekly videos on Facebook. And so basically it'd be like me sitting in someone's backyard with my phone like this, holding up a hosta, like, see this root ball, split it open. Here's the roots. Here's how you got to get it down. And I did that with our drainage pipe. And as we were building walls, people could see what the back cross section of a wall looks like during construction. Here's what a job site looks like after we've been here for 2.5 weeks. Looks like a bomb went off. Get used to it. That's what we have to do. But that was kind of my way. I'm 32. So when I was 28, out there on my own begging people for money, this is my way of being like, go check out the video, go check out our Facebook page. Here's the stuff that we're pushing real hard so that way you can see kind of our background. You can gain that trust. But it also was a way for me to be like, I'm not explaining another PVC downspout to someone. The link is in the bid. Check it out. It's very detailed. You can watch as many times. Call me if you got questions. I got 15 more bids to do today. Have a good night. So that's kind of how I approach that.
I love that. And let's take a half a second and kind of break this down. So you've got a collection of videos, whether they're on YouTube or Facebook or Google Drive or somewhere, and you actually link to those videos in certain segments of your estimate. So if somebody has a question about a specific area, they can click a link to get a better understanding for that portion of the project.
Yeah. Like the downspouts is one of the main ones that I do. Cause like we'll put, come down to your gutter connection and then I'll put a Y there with a sewer clean out and then back down out into the yard to the outflow. Well, a lot of guys don't put those clean outs. And so the reason that I do that is they're already irritated. You're not going to install the black NDS pipe for them because that's another $15, whatever. Well, once I explain to them, I'm doing it this way. So that way, whenever these get plugged up, you can run a $60 sewer snake visit down here and you've paid for all of your drains not being ruined in 5 years. These are for the lifetime of your home. And so once I started doing that to just build the credibility, because where I used to work, people loved that company because it'd been around for 35 years and I was just a hotshot new kid that came out. Well, when you're the hotshot new kid working on your own, it's not the same. So I needed to show I have this knowledge, I have this experience. But then I had those videos, because I'm using Joist. They're looking at everything digitally. I've never sent a hard bid to someone. They're on YouTube. They're on Facebook. I'm linking them in there. They can click it. They can watch the video, do their thing. And then, ta-da, they're already on my other pages. So they can just keep going. Oh, I didn't know you did paver patios. I just needed this drain fix. But I got a 600 square foot patio over here I want done. I'm your guy. Guess what? We've already got a relationship. You already trust me. And the $1,500 bid that I was rolling my eyes about just turned into an $80,000 bid. Just that simple. I know it's real easy for me to say that because I've done it a couple times, but that's how it happens. And it's all, again, like we talked about, it's all in how you're carrying yourself and presenting yourself. Every bit of it matters.
Yeah. And just to clarify, like people out there listening, like, oh, you got to shoot all these videos and you got to figure out where to put the links and where to store them. I get it. It seems frustrating. It seems time consuming, but it's a one-time time consumption. Like once you get those videos shot, like all you do is put the link.
Yeah, I used to post them every Friday on our Facebook page, and people like that's what people want. Customers wanted to see that. People loved, the interaction. They felt like they were a part of our business, even though they didn't take the bid or we were done with their job and they couldn't afford the next stages that we were building into. But it took me 45 seconds. Most of them are a minute long. It's not like I'm saying, okay, guys, and I didn't edit any of them. There's one of them I've stitched together. I'm a pretty low tech guy. So pull up my phone, put the stand up, hit record. Hey guys, it's George of GD Services. Today we're talking about whatever. And when I'd get done, I'd watch it again, maybe send it to my wife. And of course, she's going to say it looks good, whether it's good or not. And it's out there for the world to see forever. Some of them work great, some of them don't. And, it doesn't really matter because I was more interested in having the content because content is king on some of that. But I will say, I'm not out here to be a vlogger. I'm not out here, this is my first podcast I've done, but it's like, I'm not out here. I'm here to be a hardscaper and be the best at what we do. And if I get involved in this other stuff through being the best at what we do, great. That makes me happy. But I'm here to do a good job, have a good service and a good product. It will last indefinitely that way.
Yeah. But again, like, and get out of the vlogger mindset. Like, if you have a list of common questions that you get asked for specific types of jobs, and you go and create some sort of a long form video or multiple short videos on those topics. So when a customer's like, hey, like, let's say you're doing land clearing and they want to understand, I don't know, the size of the tree you can handle to this.
Here's why we don't spray eastern red cedars. You cut them below the last living branch, they're dead. This is what a good stump clearing looks like. Here's what a locust looks like. I have to treat this stump because if I don't, all its friends are coming to the funeral. So we have to treat these. We don't have to treat those. Something simple as that. And people will be like, oh, that's why my pasture looks disgusting after I paid that guy 2 years ago to do this.
Right. But if you have those links in your estimate with the explanations like, hey, watch this video to understand this, this, and this, that could save you tens of hundred, who knows how many hours a year just sitting on the phone talking to a guy.
Yeah.
Or answering the same question you answered the week before.
The thing, when it rains a lot or it used to rain a lot, we would always run into, I would get 4 weeks worth of drainage. And that's all I'd be doing was downspouts and downspouts and downspouts and flow wells. And I got a soupy spot in my yard. And so that's where it's like, I'm going to run through this real fast. I'm going to get your bid worked up. Links are in there. I've got to go because, you schedule an hour for this bid. Well, you spend 45 minutes of it just taking your measurements and building everything out. Well, then the guy's got questions. And then you get talking about his daughter that was in some college class that you were in. And then it keeps going. And it's like, I'm 20 minutes late for my next bid. I got to go. To where if I've got those links, it's like, I'm on a real tight schedule. I hope you understand. I'm not trying to be rude. I've got those links. Call me tomorrow. I drive a lot. Give me a call and we'll chat when I'm on the phone. So that way we can work it out that way. But I got to get moving down the road. We're in high demand right now. And people actually tend to respect that as long as you're polite and nice about it. It's like, I've got other folks that want me just as bad as you do. I've got to keep moving. Have a great day. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah. It's not rude at all to be clear and concise with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've even done it before when you start scheduling meetings throughout a week or something for the following week. And all of a sudden, say you schedule one on 30 minutes on the other side of where you normally work. And then you just pick up the phone and somebody goes, oh, Thursday at noon. And it's like, yeah, no problem. And so you just ram it in your calendar. Then you realize that you've got 26 minutes to make a 30-minute drive. And so a lot of times I'll show up a little bit early to those meetings because I know they're probably home. Hey, I got a lot. I misscheduled some stuff. If you're just upfront and polite with people and nice, present yourself well. Again, here we are. People get it and they understand it because they've done the same dang thing 100 times. So they understand that you're putting the effort into not only respect their time and let them know that I got to move through this quickly. If I need to come back, I will. I've got another person who's waiting too that I've got to get to. And so it kind of shows that you're respecting everyone's time in that way.
Yes. And, I always tell people, it's like, set the expectations.
Yep.
Up front. Hey, we've got 50 minutes to walk through, take measurements, and answer any questions. If I can't fulfill that in the 50 minutes, I do have some links to videos here, but I do have another appointment that I have to be to in an hour from now.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that to a customer up front.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things that's why all of that branding is so important to me, all of our website and having updated photos. Because a lot of times now that we're weaning off of those lead generation services and people are researching us before they even pick up the phone. Because think about when you go to buy something, or even people listening to the show, they're not just looking at Skid Steer Nation, they're looking at everybody's stuff. They're on all these websites looking at stuff. And it's like, how many times have you're not just pulling up the page and being like, oh, here's a Harley rig for my skid steer, ship it. You're not doing that. And it's the same way that we do. I mean, our projects cost as much as a nice new truck, so they're going through the same process to where they've done that research. All I have to do is not mess it up. I just have to get them the numbers in a timely manner. They already trust us in some way. Here you go. And we're clearing a lot that way. So,
yeah. And when you start getting into these real high dollar projects like this, let's be clear, like, money is the last factor that they're factoring into it.
Yeah. And that's where, again, like I said, rich people don't have poor friends. So as long as you're nice, you're hitting expectations, the job may take a month longer than you expected, but you were clear and you said, hey, it's Thursday. I'm going to have to stop and go somewhere else, not because I've got to go make some more money. There's a problem here that I really need to think about before we proceed. I want you to understand that there's going to be a change order associated with it. Here's kind of my options I'm kicking around. Let me stew on this for a little bit and I'll have an answer back for you. Doing something like that instead of just ramrodding your way through it is going to, I also use the example of finding a foundation on someone's backyard. That was a clear, easy fix that just needed to be done and go on. But on some of these other ones where you're digging and you find not just a rock, but you find the earth underground and you need to dig down another 12 inches where that's at, you got to come up with some kind of solution to get through that. And it's going to be more than you just going and setting your truck and getting onto Google. Like, you need to really work through that and come up with a good solution that's going to fix it. You may even have to call somebody else to come out and do some peers or do something to remedy the situation. Because if they're spending $90,000, they expect it to be perfect. And I would too. So they respect that, and you're going to get more. I a lot of times get more respect for customers by saying no, or saying we need to wait and I need to pause on this and think about it, than just strapping my hat on and running through it. There's plenty of just, cinch your belt down tight and work. That happens every day. That's normal. They really see that you took the time to think about it and work through the process and get an engineer involved if you have to. Do what you need to make sure, because it's not mine when I'm done. It's mine while I'm doing it. But then I leave and I'm never going to see him again a lot of times. So that's some of these customers, who did this? Some guy, that's what they're going to tell their friends. But if you land those expectations and they've got this image, they remember working with you specifically, then all of a sudden your number is getting handed out to all of their friends who are also wealthy, who need the same thing. And all you got to do, get them a number and say, this is how we're going to do it. Walk yourself through it. I always keep a handful of pavers in my truck, because then I can be like, here you go. These are the 3 things I really use the most. If you like something else, let me know. And it's sold before I'm even, the bid sent, and it's sold before I'm even off the block. All they had to do is get the number in their hand.
Yeah. I love that, because people at that level, it's, professionalism, cleanliness, timeframes, communication.
Yeah.
And if you're missing one of those, I'll pay another guy $3, $4, $5 more than the second bid to ensure I get all of that, especially on a 6-week project.
Yeah. And I've got a bid tomorrow I'm going to go look at where we installed like 60 steps, 3-foot wide limestone steps down this hill. We didn't have an excavator yet, so it was literally take them up with the tree cart, throw them down the hill, drag them down to the bottom with the ratchet strap, walk them to place. It was miserable, but it needed done. Nobody else would do it, and we got paid well for it. And the guy didn't want to pay the $40,000 for the wall. So he threw up a cinder block wall while we were there. And I kept telling him, man, that thing is going to fall down. It fell down while we were there, and he rebuilt it before we were finished. And now he sold the house, and the guy found us, found his steps, wanted to know if we'd come rebuild this wall. And it's like, yeah, but it's not going to be a $10,000 wall. It's going to be $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Like, it's a real issue that you can't just throw some cinder blocks at, man. And this guy understands that. The other guy, I think, was kind of reaching, to begin with for what he was doing, was in over his head already. But, there's guys professionally that are out there throwing doing the same thing with that cinder block wall where you need a $40,000 wall, not a $12,000 wall. And people want it done right. Whether it's right now or whether it's in 2 years, I get a lot of those calls too. Hey, we didn't have it figured out then. I got a couple bonuses. We refinanced the house. You got a pile of cash laying around. We're ready to do this. Great. Let me revisit the bid, catch things back up now that diesel's $5 a gallon, and we're ready to go. And that's, landing that expectation and going through the process and explaining that it's not just stacking rocks. It's a lot different than that. So,
yep. What is it? There's always like those three things, like you can ask a customer, you want it done inexpensively, you want it done right, you want it done fast, pick two.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want it done cheap and right, it's going to be a long time because I'm going to be able to fit it in where I can get it in.
Yeah. And we being in the retaining wall business, I run into a lot of those that, something's tipping over, or some, masonry is split off the face of the cinder blocks and is sagging out over a driveway. And it's like, look, it's going to be 4 or 5 months before I can get to you. I want you, and it's going to be done perfectly when we're done with it. If something happens, let me know, and I'll come out here and clean this up and get this kind of sort of held in place temporarily and try and bump you up. But, it's failing. It's going to continue to fail. If it fails before I can get to it, let me know. And then there's other projects where people like, my house is sliding off the hill. And it's like, you got 30-foot piers under this house. It's not going anywhere, dude. I'll get you when I can, and knowing those situations and how to explain that to people is, again, what sets you apart from you're just slapping some pavestone blocks up in someone's backyard.
Yep, absolutely. I remember reading, God, this was eons ago. I remember reading that like instruction manuals were written at a 4th grade reading level.
Right.
And it always stuck with me. And I'm like, why do they do that? And then I was like, is it because the average person only reads it at 4? No, it's because it's clear and concise and step by step.
Yeah.
It gets rid of all gray area, no questions. Like A goes into B to make C, right? It's so simple. And I find that if you don't take the shortcuts because you do the same pitch every week and you make sure you stick to that 4th grade reading level instruction manual style of communication, like customers can connect with you better because you're answering all their questions before they even have to ask them.
Yeah. And that's, from those videos and some of our blog stuff, the blog stuff is kind of nails on a chalkboard in some ways. They do a great job and the customers love it. But for me, it's like, you're not putting the right lingo in there. You're not. And it's like, well, you're the industry guy. You can't expect, whenever somebody is researching an irrigation head, they're not looking irrigation head. They're looking sprinkler head. So you have to use sprinklers because that's how they're going to find you. That's how you're going to be able to explain it to a customer. Now, when you actually show up, that's when you can rip the Band-Aid off and be like, look, we're talking jargon here. And then people understand it. And so part of those videos and part of the blog stuff is truly to educate the customers before they even get to me. So that way I can just go straight into my spiel. And, my wife is a nurse and it's the same thing. She'll be starting to explain to me some meds or something. I'm like, what does it do? Does it stop my headache? Does it lower my blood? What is it? I don't care what it is or what series of drug it is. I just want to know what it does. That's what it's the same thing with your customers,
100%. 100%, man. Oh, that's fantastic. So what's the vision for the next 2 to 3 years for you?
I've worked places where a finished product is a perfect finished product is the goal. And I've worked for places where butts and trucks just generating revenue was the goal. I kind of want to set us to the perfect project model. So really starting to grow into those bigger, larger projects, continuing to go and kind of carve out our own, little step in the world. So that way, there's always 5 people in a metro that people love. I want to be one of those guys. We're working our way there, to where I don't have to worry, where's the next stuff coming from? Is it still coming down the pipeline? It's there anyway, and I'm turning people away. We always I run a pretty long schedule, 6-9 months. If I could get that longer and get away with it, that would make me very happy. The reason for that is people who want quality are willing to wait, and I'm not going to hire 15 guys. I'd rather grow my top line or grow my bottom line and, all my net profits and have all that be fantastic and have a long list of people waiting for us to do the project than to be the guy that's going to be there in a month and a half to ram this thing in the ground. Because then, because I've done it the other way where you go hire a bunch of guys in the landscape industry, April 10th, you go rent a truck, you go rent a trailer, you send them out, you got the job done. Well, Mrs. Smith is mad and thinking about canceling now. So now I'm going back out in July when it's hot. I've already laid those other guys off because that busy section's done, and now I've got to go fix all this stuff. I don't want any part of that. I want everything, I want to have that niche market be perfect in what we do and have, 1 to 2 crews that I can trust, that I can say, go do your thing, and they go do their thing. And then I can turn to the younger crew, work on training them and building them up, or turn them loose and let them do their thing and just be kind of between the 2 crews doing things as we need to. We're always, some of the side job stuff that we do with the, quote unquote side jobs with the grading and the clearing and stuff, doing some of the haul off. I've got enough of that if we found the right person that's a self-starter and cares, we could put them in a truck and, turn them loose on that. But they also have to realize you're going to turn around and keep building retaining walls and stuff when that intermittently is not there. Because right now it's me doing it, who's full-time sales, full-time, admin on the business, and I'm out doing that stuff as well. So, once you subtract all the sales and the admin out of it, there's still some dead time in there for somebody just working, expecting a full-time paycheck. So, supplying the other crew, picking up materials, doing what we need to, keeping the machine running down the road.
Love it, man. Yeah, I like that your vision too is like we're not gonna sacrifice quality for growth, but we're not opposed to growing once we dial in the quality and can go to the next step.
Yeah, I mean, I've had upwards of 7 employees since we started, and right now I've got 2 employees and myself, and then I do have a part-time guy. And we're still growing with just, really the 3 of us full time. And it's not that we're growing by how many projects or how many square footage of pavers we're doing. We're growing by, I can push that line of what we're charging for this stuff because people's expectations are there. So we're growing just by being good. So it's like, just keep going. It's one of those things that this is a hard industry to be, I think some of the land clearing and some of that stuff you can do the side hustle because you can always go on a Saturday and do some of that. Well, some of the projects that I'm doing, you can't go do a 600 square foot project strung together by Saturdays because you're going to be doing that 52 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
And it's, for us, it's like you got to go whole hog and you got to be in it. And I explained to my guys, I'm like, if you're bored enough that you want more side work, I've got more work for you to do. I want you to work for me, and I want to be able to take care of you fully and completely. And then I want you to go home on the weekend and relax and spend family time. I don't want you working 6.5 days a week. I want you working a full 5 days, whether that's 50, 60 hours that needs to get done. Wintertime, it's going to be maybe 20. It fluctuates, but I want to be able to take care of you. And if you're distracted, it's really hard to be able to do that for you. Now, if there's some people like me who are probably unemployable, they need to be on their own. I get that. And if I can help you achieve those goals, and while you're with me, things are good, and you go off on your own, and then maybe you are the one who's doing kind of those side projects for me to where I don't have to do them anymore. I can sub them all to you. you can take care of that stuff, and then we can work together. If you get slow, you can come pitch in with me. But, it's kind of that, we want to stay focused. We want to stay, quality is always first and foremost. We'll sacrifice everything else for quality, basically, is in my mind, because we can't afford to go do a $80,000 project that should have been 160, and we cut corners the whole way because now we're on the hook for making it look like 160.
Right.
So,
no, that's a secret for success right there. I mean, work hard, strive for high quality, don't cut corners, charge what it's worth. You'll always have customers that are willing to pay you.
Yeah, and that's the, I always get the, do you want to look at so-and-so's bid or so-and-so's design? And it's like, I really don't right now. When we're done, I'd be in there, that's also how you learn, is looking at other people's work, not copying it, but seeing how they would have tied some of this stuff together. And when you're out looking at bids, seeing how they did their border versus how I did my border on a paver patio. And it's one of those things that's like, you need to learn and grow in that way, but you also don't want to be cutting people off at the knee. And so that's why I wait, until we're pretty much done, because it's like, I don't mind. People are looking at my prices. I know they are.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's also one of those things that's like, I need to know in my head, what's the ceiling? How far can I push this? Am I too cheap? Is that why we're not getting sales? Am I double what we should be? Because on some of those side jobs, it's like, I can't go charge somebody $6,000 for their driveway because the next guy's going to just haul the gravel in basically at cost and run a machine up and down it a couple times. So I can't, there's only so much getting away with it you can do on some of those projects. The margins are a lot tighter, but on some of the other projects, you got to maintain that because they're going to throw that bottom bid out immediately. You've got to know what your value is. You got to know what it's worth. But beyond other people's numbers, you need to know what the cost of your business is. How much does it cost every single hour for you to just simply exist without payroll? What does it cost for your trucks, for your fuel, for your insurance? So now that you've got that number figured out, how much is your material cost per day? So what's your number per day that you're really looking to achieve on this style of project? And it varies by whether it's pavers or retaining walls and stuff like that. But it's like, you got to know those numbers, because you'll be gone just like everybody else that started that wasn't charging enough or wasn't accommodating for this, that, and the other.
Yeah. And it's been the common trend in this conversation, but it's like, know your numbers, keep score to win.
Yep.
And if you don't know where to start, just start somewhere. Just start writing stuff down. And like, just by the process of writing it down, you'll start figuring some little details out along the way.
Yeah. And, work with your vendors too. Like in my industry, there's lots of good vendors out there, and they, the small guys that are local, if you've got a good reputation with them, there's going to be a lot of work coming through because they sell the stuff, they don't install it, and they've got lots of homeowners going in there looking at those products. So you want to be their go-to guy that's saying, you know what, you need that wall built, call George. They're doing more for you than anything else. But if you get to a spot where you're like, holy crap, I just landed a 600 square foot patio with a bunch of landscape lighting and a bunch of walls and stuff, I don't even know where to start. If you've got good notes, your vendor will help you walk through that. And they'll say, I don't know what you're going to charge, but here's what it's going to cost. And then from that cost, you can build off of that. You're going to lose your butt a lot. It's starting out. That's why it's struggling, because you've got to figure out, oh man, I wasn't calculating in my workman's comp and my liability insurance into my month. Why am I always short? Oh, that's the number you're short on every single month. So now that you've got that figured back out, you can keep going forward and pushing forward.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the school of hard knocks, man. And once you get that degree, you're good to go. Like, I don't care what college you thought you went to, like the school of hard knocks will kick you in the ding ding. And until you keep getting back up and work through it, like, you're going to run into the same problems.
Yeah. And, I found out that just because somebody's been in business doesn't mean that everything they've got worked out is perfect. Everyone's going to sit there and beat their chest. I mean, I just told people that we've struggled to maintain some of these bids. Everyone does it. Don't act like you're not.
And if they say they haven't, they're lying to you.
Yeah, they're lying, and it's okay. And that's why people, some people get so defensive because they're embarrassed about it. And it's like, yeah, we screwed that up. We fixed it too. Here's how I fixed it. And, my mind is not the scarcity mentality. I want my competition to be as good or better than me. because
Mm-hmm.
that means that we have to be as good or better than them. And then, you know who wins in the end? Our customers.
Yep.
We're not getting our knees cut off because some guy can do it for half the price and is doing a shoddy job. Everybody's doing quality, so you can't get away with that stuff. You have to be on your game, which to me is better for everyone involved in the situation. The homeowner's getting a better project, and then the contractors are making more money because they can charge what those things are worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last question I have for you, I know I don't want to be, polite with your time, but are you at a level now where you can actually go to your vendors and say, hey, if I commit to buying X amount of tons of this paver, can I get a better price cut on that for the next 12 months?
Yeah, in some ways we can, and in some ways I don't. Some of those vendors, that are the bigger, more national guys, they're pretty locked in. Everybody's kind of beating their head on the wall. You can get some of that just by, scale of economy, but a lot of those guys offer pre-buy options. So you can go buy, that's why we do our deposits. That's why we run this larger schedule, because, after the first year, a lot of these guys are running programs where you get 5-10% off if you buy $20,000 worth of materials, and then you have till July to pay it off.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm going to be done with all those projects by July anyway. Order them January 1st. Get them to the shop. Get them to your house. Some of those guys, they'll even let you just buy them and keep them on their yard. And so it's like, take advantage of those. Do your due diligence. Do the job. Make sure you're going to be done so you're not in over your head by the time it all gets done. And then you can realize those discounts. And some of our natural products, the prices have gone up in the last couple of years. And it's, I try and be pretty nice about it, because look, what they're doing is they're digging something out of the ground with a diesel piece of equipment. It's a piece of equipment that they can't get parts for right now. It's a piece of equipment that's going to take 9 months to get replaced, even if it goes down. On top of that, diesel has doubled or tripled for some people. And so everyone's trying to figure back out what normal is again. And so now things are kind of leveling kind of sort of back out. Now it's kind of when I'm coming back to the table and being like, okay, where's the real number in here anymore? I know you were kind of covering bases, but where are we back at now that, now for a while diesel was almost $3. Now it's back to 5. But when it was 3, you're digging that thing out with a diesel piece of equipment, putting on a semi, bringing it to your yard, loading it with another piece of diesel equipment. Okay, diesel's gone. That we're taking that back out. What's the number that we can work with now? If I'm paying you cash, if I'm writing you one good check at the end of this project, where's our bargaining power on some of this? But then the flip side is the explanation I just gave to you. I turn around and turn to the customer and I say, go to a gas station, look at the price of fuel right now. Like, what it costs for us to be in business is much different, because everything I'm getting is showing up somewhere and then ending up on a piece of, something run by diesel that has to get to where it's going. And then I'm bringing it to you with another diesel truck and installing it with. So having those explanations and knowing that stuff helps a lot.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better than just what the cost is.
Yeah, cost of living.
Yeah.
Being if I show that I'm just as frustrated as they are, because I've gone to people and been like, look, this is what you want. I'm your guy to install it. I don't have a paver press in my backyard. I'm kind of being held by these manufacturers, and they're being held by the world, so it's like, it's not just as simple as going and knocking on someone's door and being like, I really think we need 30% off this next order. Like, I want to be respectful in the way, because I don't want my customers to nickel and dime me. And so I'm hoping that I'm not the nickel and dime customer to my vendors, because nobody, let's be honest, nobody likes that guy.
No, and during COVID, I remember a lot of customers would call in, ask about a piece of equipment, and then a week later they'd be like, why is the price $300 higher? I'm like, this is the steel market. This is the percentage it's raised in the last 7 days. And then I would break down and go, listen, there's this many pounds of steel in that attachment at that cost, at this margin, that they've increased the price. This is how much more just in steel, not even labor, paint. I'm so all we did, we're not even marking it up. We're just adding the cost. And then just because you're able to walk through that, they were calm. Like, okay, that's just the price it is. I'm like, it is. Like, we're not trying to make $300 more on you.
Yeah. And we doing natural stone, like, there's only so much we can get in the US, and a lot of our stuff comes from overseas. That's natural products. So I can remember I gave a lady a bid for a bunch of travertine that comes out of Turkey as kind of Russia was starting to stack stuff up on the border with Ukraine. And I said, look, I don't care what your politics are. I don't care if you're a conspiracy theorist. Something's about to happen right down the road from where this stuff needs to be shipping through. Like, you're going through the port that is in the middle of the war right now, or about to be. And I said, I need to know by Thursday, not to pressure you, but the price is going to either go up substantially, potentially. We're not going to be able to get it, or it's going to take a month or a year to get instead of a month. I just need an answer from you. And she understood. And luckily we ordered that stuff because it tripled in price 2 weeks later. And it was like, I was paying attention to that stuff because it's like, this lady needs the product you need to make this project the way you want it is about to have fighter jets overhead. So that changed, nobody's worried about Corian travertine for rich people in Kansas anymore whenever there's missiles overhead.
Not at all, man. Not at all. Oh, that's hilarious, man. Well, that's great, man. I love your story. I love your vision, the goals that you've got set forth, the fact that you're quality first, outsourcing things that you're not good at or you don't want to do, such as your website marketing and branding, but being involved enough that it's cohesive and fits the image, feel, and like that you want to have moving forward. I like that, you're investing in your team and you're working with them and you want them to have a higher quality of life, not just more money in your pocket. And I think you've just had a lot of great advice spread out throughout this interview that people out there listening that are either struggling or trying to figure out how to grow their business can take some notes on and like maybe start implementing some of that into their own business to reach their next level. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. I look forward to seeing what your growth looks like in the next year or 2 years. And if you ever need anything from us on our end, we're always here for you.
Oh yeah, will do.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, that was George from GD. It's services, right? GD Services. Yep. George from GD Services is out in Kansas. If you're in the hardscape landscape business, connect with him. Find his information in the show notes, reach out. Maybe you can learn something from him. He can learn something from you, and you guys can grow your hardscape landscape businesses from that way. Otherwise, until next week, don't forget to check out skidsteernation.com, everybody. Everybody needs a new attachment. They're kind of like shoes. You have one pair, you want 7. So head over to skidsteernation.com. Check out the buckets, the graders, the grapples, the augers, the trenchers, the booms, the land levelers, and all of the rest of them that we have available for you. All made right here in the great US of A. So until the next episode, take care, guys.